Great to have you with us again, Steve. Thank you for joining. We're on the 19th of August today, and just wanted an update following on from our last chat.
I think if we look at the coffee market first, we've seen the market this week really come off a little bit, which is great for roasters. Not probably enough, but still tracking down to the low 180s. And hovering around there. We saw a little bit of showers through certain regions in Brazil the other week, which is taking a little bit of pressure off that weather story. And hopefully we'll see a retraction down into the 170s in the coming days at the same time. Still really early to say. There's still, with the follow-up rains that we need, is still probably out there on the September forecast, but we need those to fall to see. I think there'll be more challenging news coming out of Brazil at the same time. One of the positives this week has been the release of the emergency relief fund by the Brazilian government of 1.3 billion reals, about 230 million US or so, which is again something to help those people that have been impacted by the frost. Not really going to have a big market driver, but still a possibility at the same time. Robusta really seems to be Arabica's friend, trading generally in the same directions, about high 1,870 a ton at the moment. The sad news for us is really our FX, where we've sort of pushed through the 73 down to 72, hovering there. I think just with the instability in our country with multiple lockdowns happening, we really need to get out of these and just have the economy punching up as normal again. We hope that will happen soon.
So if I'm a roaster with sort of a gap to fill, obviously we can see challenges in the supply network, and people are getting coffee late. Should they be waiting a little bit because we are expecting the market to come back towards us, to soften a little? Or would you say, look, these prices, we're likely to see them for the next 2 or 3 weeks still? What's your take on that?
I think with gaps, I would always be proactive, because it's something that you're sourcing that you may or you may not know is exactly the same as your core blend input. So I'd always be proactive in trying to find the coffee that best suits that blend. I think there's an aspect that prices have already moved, so that price is not going to be as attractive as you want it to be, but we have to fill that gap and keep roasting at the same time. So definitely encourage anyone to be proactive on looking for qualities, or also talk to us on potential alternatives for those qualities at the same time. There may be things that can substitute quite easily that provide today a little bit better value than what you've used in the past at the same time.
And then sort of going on to this issue of logistics, we know that Colombia is facing challenges. Give us a bit of an idea and insight into what's going on there, and again, what we can expect in that space in Colombia.
I think definitely continue to expect the unexpected. That's been the rule of 2021, and something we continue to live by, and be as organized, as forward from a logistics point of view as you can be. I think we touched on this last week, but again, that idea of what used to take 3 months from origin buying to your roastery probably takes 4 to 6 now at the same time, depending on transshipment ports and other things. We're also going into the period of shipping for Christmas products and everything else, which puts further strain on logistics through the second half of the year, generally better than the first half of the year, as we approach what's called sort of Golden Week in China, which is around October. So there's more freight coming, and that proves challenging at the same time. I think Colombia, Central America, we're we're definitely not seeing an easy access to food grade containers. That's been the biggest challenge. Sometimes there's slots, but accessing those right containers to put our coffee in so that coffee travels safely in its journey has been tough at the same time. Similarly, there's been an aspect of shipping lines really waiting to fill up their vessels at the last minute. So pre-booking or having pre-books isn't actually working because sometimes you're not getting that equipment released, even though you've got a booking and other things. So there's many different scenarios in the whole freight game at the moment that continue to play out simultaneously in some cases. And planning, working with our teams at Origin and our partners at Origin and the great work that they do to find us those containers. So quick shout out to them at the same time.
And it's so interesting as well, even when we get coffee on the water, it's still got to do a tranship very often through Singapore, which then causes further delay. So even when you do get it going, at the right time, you can't guarantee it's going to work as usual.
Yeah, transshipment's been one of those interesting things. I was listening to a documentary about shipping recently, and sort of one port was talking like, our daily volume was 15,000 FCLs through this port, and we generally sat on that. Now they're trying to push 17, 18,000 through a 24-hour period. We're burning through people. We're having to do it with less people because of COVID travel restrictions in different countries. We've seen Ningbo in China shut down because of a COVID scare at the port. So there's more freight trying to funnel through the same hole or the ports than ever before, which has really been challenging. And I think whilst we go, why is it always just stuck? Well, I think it's just the nature of the game at the moment that, again, what we're allowing is just an extra week of transshipment. It scares us when our lovely coffee sits in a place like Singapore for an extra week or anything at the same time. But doing the right due diligence when it lands, understanding the quality, having the conversations with Origin, planning as best we can, we've generally been okay so far.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. The other area we touched on was, despite these high, pretty much record prices we're seeing, we weren't seeing a softening of the differentials. But I understand we're starting to see, movements in that. Can you give us sort of, some idea around which countries are starting to soften differentials and where we are seeing movement and a little bit of why?
Yeah, I think we've seen a little bit of a softening out of Papua New Guinea as we get towards the end of the crop and people are looking to get coffee moved out by the end of the year. So that's one we've noticed a little bit of weakness in, which has been good. Definitely encourage any Aussie roasters to get in touch with us in that regard. I think the others is hit and miss. It's sort of depending on what happens almost at the moment, that there's okay prices or not, but we're not seeing really any weakness in a percentage term as the magnitude have been the increase on the exchange. So I'd love to tell you there's more out there. I think it's really about understanding and working with us though on strategic prices to try and hit. What we've been more successful on over the last couple of weeks is actually working from the point of view of a supply chain, understanding the whole cost structure, trying to understand what number the roaster wants to hit or can afford to pay. We all know they want to pay and we want to get a lower coffee for you, but it's pretty challenging at the moment. So understanding that endpoint really helps us bargaining at the same time for the new coffees as well. So that's the other dynamic that's really out there, is that partnership sort of bargaining point of view that we can bring to the buying.
Awesome, Steve. Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And always make sure you're talking to us as early as possible, and that allows us to reverse engineer based on needs. But always forward planning. And on that forward planning note, we're coming into September. What origins should we be thinking about? Midway through August for September, October, November. What origins should we be considering, both in terms of sort of specialty land, and also what origins, of course, as Brazil, but other origins that we should have in our minds. There's PNG, of course, but any others that you suggest we should start forward planning for?
Yeah, I think it's really about, first and foremost, understanding what your current contracts and when they're going to last. I think that's the most challenging thing for roasters right now with the lockdown, is juggling that forward demand. I think if you've worked out that equation, then there's really interesting options landing right now for the next couple of months from the last crops, from harvesting this year, but also we go into next year already. So I think looking at almost your Ethiopians and other things, your Kenyans, and thinking about them early in terms of getting ideas of what you may want, so those conversations can happen early at the same time. We know we've had good success with getting Ethiopia out early at the same time, and with forward planning with partners, we can do that. I think there's always going to be delays in that part of the world. So the more planning, the better at the same time. I think the others, again, I mean, the Burundis that we've been working to a lot of customers that have been doing great. We're seeing those sort of reach processing, and they're going to go on the water soon. So we're really excited to be landing them for the sort of Christmas period as well. And I think sort of Tanzania, Uganda is going to come online in the next couple of months, weeks, in terms of their harvest cycle as well. So if people are looking for interesting options or base options there, then now is really the time to be thinking about what does the harvest look like, and ask those questions as well.
Another origin Harry and I were looking at was Peru, and I think that also represents some interesting opportunities from both north and south. So I agree. I think again, more forward planning we can do, the better. And certainly from a perspective of Ethiopia and Getty, the sooner we can make sure that we have everything prepped and ready for microlots and microlot production, the better.
I think it's just about getting him the brief, and he can do the great work that he's been doing for us in Addis, because as much as you and I would love to be there, and our roasters as well, it's just not possible. So rethinking that partnership procurement plan sort of idea, instead of the romanticism of travel that we all want to get back to. But I think unfortunately is still a little way away. Definitely a shout out to Peru though. We're definitely building some really interesting partnerships in that origin, and really encourage people to reach out to us in regards to Peru as well.
Cool. Yeah, agreed. Thanks, Steve. Anything else from you that you feel our roasters should know this week, should think about?
I think the biggest thing is just letting everyone know to be checking in and to be talking and communicating. Sometimes it's really about just talking to us, understanding what can be done, what can't be done, and looking for that way forward together. We all need to lean on each other for support during these really challenging times, and only by sharing the load can we sort of get through these lockdowns and get back to normal, whatever normal will be once we've hit those sort of vaccination thresholds and everything else. But just really encourage everyone to have open, honest conversations with yourselves, with us, if you're partnering with us at the same time, or maybe you want to, and you're just like, how are you guys doing it? I mean, they've definitely got the capacity across the team to talk to people, because today is about rethinking how to do it for the future at the moment, because none of us know what that looks like.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Yeah, really agree with that. I think, again, you know, we can only help if you're talking to us. So yeah, and I know from my part, me and the team are reaching out to as many of our customers as we can to discuss that. So yeah, thanks very much for your time. Really appreciate it today, Steve. And till next week.
Cheers, Ollie, and cheers everybody else. Bye-bye.
Bye.